everyone. Welcome to this session. I'm your host, Vikas Mahajan, Senior Director at Indegene, Head of Delivery and Operations for Data and Analytics. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by two incredibly experienced professionals in the field of pharma forecasting, Donny Wong from AstraZeneca and Nicholas Guthrie from Boehringer Ingelheim. Donny and Nick, thank you so much for being here with us today. Could you please share a quick introduction about your roles with our viewers, please?
Hi, my name's Nick Guthrie. I'm currently the Senior Portfolio Forecasting Advisor within Boehringer Ingelheim. I used to lead the forecasting team for the last 10 years or so, but this year I took a step to the side and now I advise our team on forecasts.
Yeah.
And my name is Donny Wong. I am the Senior Director for Global Insights and Analytics at AstraZeneca, where I've been for about 6 years, with responsibilities for the CVRM space, focusing on early assets, which means any drugs that are phase 3 and earlier. As I said, I've been at AstraZeneca for 6 years, but prior to that, I've spent 14 years in various forecasting roles at 2 different vendor companies.
Very nice. Fantastic. Thank you for the details, gentlemen. So I would like to delve right into our main topic today, which is early asset forecasting. While we all know that creating a new pharmaceutical product is both costly and is pretty risky, and companies invest hefty sums in research, clinical trials, regulatory approvals, but if the asset fails in the later stages, these investments can be all at loss. Now, the development process itself spans across many, many years. Managing strategies over such extended periods demands careful planning, adaptation to the ever-changing market dynamics, and it is absolutely vital for companies to make smart decisions from the very beginning of it and to implement the strategies to navigate market uncertainties, expanding the asset scope and the target indication. And on top of that, to optimize on the opportunities which are potentially there to extend possible for an asset. That's where the robust early asset forecasting comes into play, guiding the decision-making process. Nick and Donny, I know both of you have wealth of experience in this field, so I'd rather love to hear your thoughts on what are these critical challenges those define the current landscape of early asset forecasting, and where do the traditional methods fall short in addressing these challenges effectively? Nick, if you can start with the response, please.
Sure. Well, if we think about the traditional method, I mean, it's the one we've used for as long as I can remember, which is a fair few years, which is to start with patients. So how many patients have the disease? How many are treated? How many are diagnosed? How many are treated? How many are treated with particular therapy, and not just drug therapy? And then how many of those will be treated with my potential product out there? That's what I would regard as the traditional method. And it's very reliable. It's worked well for the industry. The challenge, one of the main first challenges, is the epidemiology. Is the epidemiology available for the disease we're interested in? We often try and define a set of patients that we feel will most benefit from our product. So the first question is, who are those patients? And that's where we're sometimes we struggle to find the epidemiology. Sometimes we don't actually know. Very early on, we don't actually really know that much about the product and where it's best suited. So we're working with hypotheses, ideas, and those sorts of things. So that very first challenge is how many patients have it. And then we have to evolve. How is it going to develop? How are things going to change in the future with therapy options, with awareness, with all of our commercial activities, our competitors' activities? How's it going to develop? That's the guesswork, the art that goes into the forecast. And yeah, I would say it's not the methodology that's the challenge. It's the data availability that's the challenge.
Yeah, I would
Absolutely.
say I'll just add to Nick's comments. When I think of traditional, I think of brand forecasting. And with brand forecasting, if the drug's already been on the market for a while, you have a trajectory that you can look at. You know historically where it's going, and you have a good sense in 1 year, 2 year where it's going, and what the catalysts are that are coming into the marketplace that might change the dynamics. When you're doing early asset forecasting for a drug that hasn't launched yet, there's no way to know. History doesn't necessarily guarantee that the future performance is going to be the same. So it becomes a lot more complex in that way because of the increasing level of uncertainty. I think from a corporate perspective, and I think I see this across a lot of different companies, not just here at AstraZeneca, but everything we do is becoming more complex. Pipelines are getting larger, so project volumes are increasing. That creates problems. There are a greater number of indications that are tied to each product as well. So that increases complexity in the workload that we have to address. Our stakeholders are increasingly asking for more and more data and insights and depth of insights. It's not enough to just get a forecast value. They need to understand the drivers and what's happening and why, as Nick was mentioning. Increasingly, we're asked to go into new disease areas where there's no knowledge estate. So again, as Nick said, epidemiology is the starting point, but if there is no epi, you need to find it somehow. For small molecule drugs, oftentimes we're asked to forecast out fixed dose combinations as well as the monotherapy. So again, another layer of complexity, and patient overlap as well. In the old days, just using diabetes as an example, in the old days, diabetes was just diabetes. Now, a diabetes patient is also a heart failure patient, it's also a CKD patient, it's also a cardiovascular patient, and you have to think about all the different drugs that they're taking, as well as the drug you're trying to forecast for.
No, absolutely. I think you made a valid point there, Donny, as well, and Nick. So I think with the event of so much of data coming into picture, the patient landscape being changing, how things are moving forward, the complexity is getting, worse. So people need to know that, okay, what is the history of the patient? What is the future roadmap? What is a regimen to be predicted across? Patient takes the center altogether as well. But while this is happening, can you also, just working on these parts itself, that what could be the various innovative data sources that pharma companies would need to utilize in order to enhance this precision and then create a comprehensive forecast for their early assets? Donny, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, so we've utilized a lot of different, more modern ways of addressing this. In the old days, our epidemiology, as an example, was literature-based epidemiology. That we would either acquire from data vendors or try to generate ourselves with literature. Increasingly, we're looking at real world data assets, so that we can get a true sense of what patients are being prescribed and what drugs they're taking. This type of data also helps us with overlaps, which literature would never, unless they were specifically looking at it as an academic study, they would never look at some of these overlaps. Some other tools that we utilize quite a bit are price and volume relationship curves, which are really important because the size of an opportunity is directly correlated to the pricing potential for a drug as well. We also spend time looking at a lot of analogs, and increasingly that's a big focus for us. Again, a past history is no guarantee of future performance, but it gives us a sign. It gives us a sign of how fast an uptake might be. It gives us a sign of what a peak year value might be. It gives us a sign of how competitive pressures might play out in the marketplace, depending on the number of competitors. But as Nick was saying, also, oftentimes we just don't know the science behind the drug and how well and what the differentiation factors are. As one of my old VPs used to say, a drug, especially in an early space, has yet to reveal itself. Meaning that, what you think the profile of a drug is at the candidate selection stage versus what after phase 1 data or phase 2 data become available can be very different than once you have your pivotal data that you can actually generate a label with. So this type of evolution requires us to think, very differently as well, based on, and this is where the TPP becomes such a critical document.
No, absolutely. Nick, what are your thoughts?
I largely agree with what Donny says. I mean, the the forecast is about the future, and the future hasn't yet happened. And we mustn't lose sight of that. So the data itself is useful, but it's not the end of the discussion. The hypothesis about how the products will work, how the market will develop and evolve is important. In fact, I would argue the story behind your forecast is as important as the data behind your forecast. Being able to explain what and why we think something will happen, and what and why we need to do certain things to help make that happen is critical. It's critical to putting the development plan together to actually deliver that, the information we will need in the future to commercialize these products. But it's also critical to shape the brand strategy and any of our activities in market shaping in order to create an environment for our product to be successful. And then we mustn't forget that while I and BI are doing one thing, Donny and AZ may be doing something differently in the same space, because we have competing ideas and attitudes as to what a good product in that space might be. So it's not all within my control either. That's the other thing about the future. Some of it's done to me as well as what I'm trying to do to it. So yeah, that's the complexity we're dealing with.
No, absolutely.
Nick makes a great point, though. I think a lot of people don't understand forecasting, that it's a mix of art and science. People think it's just numbers, generating numbers and modeling. But storytelling is a huge part of what we do. And I like to tell, especially new forecasters that I'm working with, that part of what we're producing for the organization is a reason to believe. So if we think a drug's going to hit like $2 billion in revenue, why do we think that? We're the ones that are responsible for telling that story, using data, using insights, and using our numbers. We also are telling the story of what needs to be true in order for that $2 billion to be achievable. And we're trying to recognize and capture, and this can be quite difficult, company ambition as well. Oftentimes the data say one thing and company ambition and belief is slightly different, and we have to figure out ways to justify the numbers as part of the storytelling.
Absolutely.
I think what needs to be true or what needs to happen, whichever phrase you want to use, is something we've been doing more and more of as we match, or as our forecasts begin to reflect some of our senior leaders' ambitions in an area. That can only happen if certain things, or that will only occur if certain things happen. And that's why we've been capturing this, what needs to be true, in there, because it's so critical to help us not just make the case and build the story, but be able to follow why, if things are not happening the way we expect, why that is,
Absolutely. And see, that's where being, from this experience of yours, strategizing is important. So what strategies do you believe pharma companies must embrace to navigate, like the intricate terrains of early stage assets, ensuring every strategic decision is geared towards a long-term success altogether? So Nick, Donny,
Yeah, if I can start on that one, maybe. I think correct indication sequencing is one of the most important things that has to happen at a really early stage. What we oftentimes get from the scientists is a molecule that they're targeting for a particular disease, where they think the mechanism makes sense. And yes, that's a great, solid starting point. But some mechanisms are quite general. It can go into 3, 4, or 10 different diseases. And sometimes you might want to hold off on one disease and focus on others where you might be able to better differentiate, where you might be able to enter a space with less competitors, where you might be able to generate a higher price point, because as you expand indications, the price can only go one way, which is downwards. So you want to start with, with your best foot forward if possible. So as a process, this is quite critical, I think, to understand the regulatory space, the competitive landscape, and to do scenario planning so that you can maximize the overall opportunity for a molecule and not just that one initial drug and indication pair that you're presented with.
I would agree with that. And that causes us, it creates a challenge for us as the forecaster as well. because we're being asked to look at opportunities earlier and earlier when we know less and less about what the product actually does. We used to kind of very much have a lead indication, and we would build a forecast and a strategy around that, and then additional indications would follow, often late in the life cycle, i.e. at and around launch and beyond launch. Nowadays, we're being asked to look in early development at additional indications. As I say, when we know less, but also when we're still exploring some of those opportunities. So it's not just, we don't have to do just the forecasts for the indications we choose. We have to do forecasts for the indications we reject in order to help make those decisions on which ones to pursue and which ones not to. So yeah, I think that does add a lot more complexity to the work we do. And the other thing, I was just thinking about as Donny talked about, earlier in the life cycle and put multiple indications, is there needs to be some coherence around the brand. Okay, it can do lots and lots of, it may have the potential to do lots and lots of things, but if it becomes confusing as to what this product is, then the physician begins to struggle to use it. So yes, we have to explore the breadth of benefits that this can bring to the patients, but at the same time, we need it to be coherent, need it to make sense, to be convincing to the physician and the payer, but in particular, that it's a product that they want to engage with.
Thanks both. That was truly great. Thank you for these insights. But that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you for joining us today for this insightful discussion on early asset forecasting in the pharma world. We hope that our audience finds this conversation as enlightening as we did as well. A special thank you to our esteemed panelists, Donny Wong and Nicholas Guthrie, for sharing their expertise and the journey across. Remembering the world of pharma is ever evolving, and making the informed decisions in these early stages are truly pivotal. So we encourage you all to stay curious, keep exploring, and remain innovative. Stay tuned for more engaging discussion. But until next time, this is Vikas Mahajan signing off. Take care, stay inspired, and keep pushing the boundaries of knowledge. Goodbye and have a great day. Thank you.